set code, and then .acy. .acy is the annual public data set. And then if you want to have information on the water balance components, you go to the annual sub area, which is the ASA. So yesterday we tried to make different maps, and then we tried to also change the management and the land use conditions, and we had some graphs to see how these were changing based on the scenarios that we created. And then after that, we went on to the preparation of our soil and then weather data sets. Basically, we learned how to prepare our daily data input sets. And then we also learned how to work on weather generator, so that in cases where you do not have daily data sets for a station, or even if you had gaps in them, the weather generator will help you to generate this other data sets that you need. So we learned also how we could input the soil and the weather data sets into our program. So basically, for the weather data and the soil data, we learned that there are two main ways that we can do it. That was what we did yesterday. So the first one was through the interface, and then the second one was through the Ethiopia database. So you could either go to the interface and then add it on, and then you could also just go into the database and then copy and paste your files. Thank you. So I think the first thing that we did was to try to compare our baseline conditions with the different scenarios that we had created. So okay, so after setting up our model and then running the baseline conditions, we learned about how we can create different scenarios to be able to run and compare the results. So that, for example, if you have a cornfield and you want to see how a change in land condition or how a change in management could either affect the yield in a positive or negative manner, you could do all that from either this interface or from the main management database itself. So, for example, we are working in this. Okay, so yes. So for the land condition, so the good thing about this model, as we have been talking about, is that you could either go for the details from the program that has been given, the step-by-step procedure, and also the other files that you have, or you could either have a summary of what you would want to work with from this area. So, for example, we tried changing the different land conditions. You could simply get it from here.
We tried to play around with contours with infiltration, also the one with pore infiltration, and then we created our scenario one. So if you want to view the results, if you want to see the effects on the crop yield.acy file, so this is where you can have a detailed result of your runs. So here you see the yield, the biomass, the water stress days, the nitrogen stress days, and so on and so forth. So I think that from here you could also make some very interesting graphs and pie charts for which you can make comparisons. So based on this, if you feel that, okay, for example, here your corn is having a lot of stress, then it informs you of what to do. So here you see that for phosphorus there is no stress. So I think this is where we have begun introducing some form of fertilizer. Also, if you want to, so here you can do several things. For example, we decided to check on our land. So here we changed from conventional tillage, if I remember, to no-till and so on and so forth. And then we also created our other scenarios. So again, I think we worked on management as well. So we tried to look at what will happen when we take off the fertilizer. So here, I think for the baseline condition, we had um, you didn't change it because I still see fertilizer here.
That's barley now.
Okay, barley. Okay, so for our runs, I think we used corn. So I have to go to corn. Okay, this is barley. Good. So we have to, yeah. Yes. So we have to go back to our corn. It was corn dry yield no-till, right? Yes. Yes. So for the baseline conditions, we had fertilizer application so that if you analyze the yield, you will see that the fertilizer will not be stressing because we added fertilizer. So for one of our scenarios, we tried to take off the fertilizer and we tried to analyze to see how this will affect our cropping systems and also the yield. In the same way, you can check and take out irrigation, for example. So if, for example, you are trying to look at how supplemental irrigation will either boost your productivity or otherwise, you can also play around with the irrigation bit. Also pesticide, whatever you want to do, you can edit it from this edit all other files. So for all the runs that we did, we tried to, so you can edit soils, you can edit cropping data, cropping systems, fertilizers, and everything that you feel that you want to introduce onto your field. So from there, you simply would want to compare the .asa from your baseline condition, from your different scenarios, so that you can see the changes as a result of what you are adding or taking out. And then from there, we went on to, yes, we went on to how we could prepare the input data set. So for example, you have information on weather, but you want to take it into the form that the model is able to use. So you simply would want to go to the software. Software. we want to work on the daily input preparation. So at first we had only, we don't have to do it again. You remember, right? Okay. So at first we had only this one, but we wanted to create a different one. So we just copied from start to end of our data set. The most important thing to remember here is that this is an Excel macro file, so you only have to play with this. And the key thing to remember here is depending on the start date of your weather data, or if you want to simulate from 1990, 1995, you just make sure that your data set has been prepared in this format. You copy paste from wherever you have saved your data set, and then you see that automatically it will be transferred to this point. And then when you are modeling, probably you may have modeled 2, 3, 4 times, and all the data sets are saved in your main um, working area here. So if you want to be able to differentiate between the different runs that you've done, because here you have only software. Yes, here you have 1 and 3. So if you want to just run, maybe you will have 4. Yes, definitely you may have 4. So if you want to create a unique name, you right click, you go to view code, and then you change the name here. So once you are done changing the name from this side here, you just go back and then export files. So once you are done exporting the file, it will just automatically appear in this folder. So for the creation of weather statistics, so now we have this data set which is complete, no gaps. We are sure that it's a good data set that we've generated. For your weather generator, you would want to be as accurate as possible, because you are in the first place, you are transferring from one point to another. So there could be a little bit of error. You wouldn't want to keep on magnifying the error. So you want to make sure that your input data for the creating the weather generator is as accurate as can be. So for that one, you need the monthly weather statistics tool that has been created for us. And then for when you open this, you will just have only this application that you run, and then this .dat file, and then you have to introduce your own data that you want to use into this folder. So let's just refresh our minds. So once you bring in this file, you name it, you give it a header, you have to give it a name. Remember that the data will just, the one you created will just have been in this format. Yes. So what you have to do is to make sure that you give it a header. So 1, 2 down, and then you just, yeah. And you make sure, so for the header, you decide to give it any name that you want. But for this side of the, for this side of the line, the first part will be the number of years that you are running. So this, you know that we are running from 1980 until I think 2030. Yeah. So we are running for 34 years, and you want to tell the model where to start running from. Is it 1995? Is it 1920? So you give it a header so that it can pick and use. Now, from here, you go to the .dat file, because you have to tell it what data to work with. Okay, so here we've seen that this is ET0003, so it has to be the same. So that if it's ET0005, you have to make sure that this is having the same to tell the model to pick and run with this data set. So once you are done, sorry, I'll go back to the folder.
But that's
Once you are done with
how
once you are done with that, you will have two new files created. Where is your I?
often with no part. You can work.
I should run it again, right?
No, just make often with no part.
Okay, this? Yes. So once you are done running, this is how the data set will look like. And you would want it to be in the same manner as you are going to input either through the interface or through the MDB file, the database. So yesterday we learned how we could do this easily. And then we know that even though the weather generator is coming with an additional information on wind speed, we will not be using this directly into the weather. It has a separate file it runs with. So you arrange it without the wind speed. You keep it until you are ready to modify that one. But an interesting thing that we realize is that this tool can be very useful even outside of our WinApex program. Because, for example, sometimes you are running analysis, you want to put together a paper or data set in a specific area, you want to run analysis. Sometimes you have to use tools like the Index when you want to run the probability that a wet day follows a dry day. I don't know how many of you have experienced that. Probability that a wet day follows a dry day follows a wet day, and so on and so forth. I think this is a very useful tool that you can also use to generate such data sets. It does it for you on a monthly basis, considering all the data that you've given it. So if you want to run very quick analysis, you can also use this weather generator. Yes, so from here we go to our WinApex. How many minutes more do I have? Yes. So at the first point before we created the ET dam, we used the existing weather station that was available. It's the easiest rather than starting from scratch on yourself. So we went to our weather data that we had created. So you know that from the interface you have to do it manually. And I remember that when someone entered just to he was asking me what's the shortcut that we can use. Unfortunately for this one, at least, so we added a new weather station, we gave it a name, and then we modified this one. So we input the January data set, we saved, we went back, back, back. And then once we had saved it, we found that it was Teddy, I need you. Okay, sorry. It's not my computer, naturally. Sorry. So, yes, so we tried to introduce our newly created weather data set, weather generator here. So there are several ways by which you can do this. A very simple way to be just to copy until the end, take it to Excel, modify, and then bring it back and paste. Was that clear yesterday? Yes.
Yeah.
You are just introducing your data sets into the database. So if you have all the time and patience and you think that you can be accurate enough, you can do it one after the other on the interface. But to save time, we can just copy and then bring it here. So I think for the weather generator, that was it. And then we go to the soil, how to prepare the soil data set. So for that one, we had basic data that we can almost always get from running simple laboratory analysis and from what we can also get from literature. So we use soil sensor data from Dangila from 2 layers, from 0 to 100, I think, and from 100 to 200 in that manner. So the first thing that we would want to do is to go to our software folder. And then for this one, we use the spore hydrology. It has the soil water content bit that uses field transfer functions to help us to generate our additional soil characteristics. So, okay, so once you get into the soil water content bit, the first thing you would want to do is to check that the unit has been changed from English. I think the default is English to metric. Okay, so using the information that we had been given, we tried to find additional data sets to introduce into our model. So I remember that we used the percent for Dangela layer 1, percent sand was 9, stones 23, clay, and so on and so forth. And this was at a depth of 1.4 meters. And then we also had information on organic carbon. So this is layer 2. So we end here for this one. Organic carbon is 2.43. we know that for the two we know that for the two there is no place for organic carbon, so we have to make our own conversions 1.72 times the organic carbon to get our organic matter. So here it's very easy. We were able to generate and fill out all the details that we needed. So from the manual, we were also able to figure out the hydraulic soil group based on the infiltration. So we know that clay belongs to the soil group D, and for layer 1 and layer 2, they are both clay. That is why the hydraulic soil group remains the same. And then when we come to the albedo, the amount of light which is being absorbed based on incoming rays. So we, as just a refresher, we know that a black body will absorb almost all the light coming through it. So it has an albedo of 0, and then ice, which has a white surface and most likely reflects almost all, has almost one. Yes. So for clay, also this is in the manual, there are ranges. Depending on the soil type, you have a range to choose from. So which is why we chose this albedo. So we go to our interface again and we see how we introduce our soil. So with this information, you can just simply, based on the layer data sets that you have, you can either do it here by transferring them or go to the database, which I find very simple. When you are in the database, it's likely that you will not introduce errors. You are just simply copy pasting. So the probability that you introduce errors is very minimal. So you go to the soil. So based on the information that you've created for the soil data set, you can introduce it into the database. In the same manner for the wind speed, within the data set, within the database, you look for the wind portion. Yeah, okay, this is the wind speed. So yesterday we saw that for the wind, it's in this order rather than in that order. So for the wind data set that we created, So after when you generate the weather statistics, remember that there was a portion for the wind data which was January, February, March, April, May in that order. But you realize that this is in the column and not the row form. So you would simply want to, for example, assuming this is the wind data set, you copy, then you transpose this. Special transpose. So you get it in this manner and then you introduce it into your database. I don't know if I'm leaving anything out. What else do you do yesterday?
It is on. If you have something that you like to ask, chance to ask her from yesterday's session.
So far, how are you finding the training? Is it interesting? Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also possible to say it is boring.
It's fine. Then you know how to adjust to your tune. I mean, some are saying it's too slow, some are saying it's too fast. The feedback is important for us so that we know how to adjust how we handle the next days. So please feel free. But I encourage you to try every day, like when you go home. It's very easy to forget because unlike some other models where you have everything in one interface, you realize that this one, you have to go here to look for this, you have to come here to do this, and you have to bring it. So if you don't practice, you will tend to forget. That's just the only thing. But the model is continuously being upgraded, improved. So I also advise that you visit the websites of the developers so that you'll be in tune with the updates. Yeah. I don't know what is happening.
Now there's one crop. But in the farm, if I have 4 or 5 crops, one crop.
What was the question?
The question,
Uh,
we have seen only 4 nests.
yeah.
We have wheat,
Yeah.
rice, others.
Yeah, we'll see today. That's our today's session. How we create our own schedule for the crop. There are more than 120 crop databases. Yeah. So every crop will be available there. But if you have a different crop also, different from this more than 100 field, you can provide your own data to use it.
That's good. So provides all the information about that crop.
Yeah.
If it's any crop.
Anyone.
But most of the crops that we grow here in Ethiopia are available.
It's prepared for standard.
And then areas. Area they can occupy.
Area.
Area they can occupy at a time. One crop season. The corn is having many buildings.
So so if you have different crop, different areas with no rotation, so there are 2 options. One, you have one farm and multiple rotations of crops. Yeah, in that case, you can treat it as just one sub area. The area will not vary, but only the crop varies on the season. But if you have different areas, then you have to treat each area as a separate sub area. Separate sub area. So you will have one sub area for corn, another sub area for wheat. If they are parallelly grown, so you will have 2 or 3 or even more than that sub areas. So it is a difference of area.
But
So I actually treat as one sub area.
once
Yeah, and you multiple cropping. But if you have another one, you create another sub area for that crop. Yes.
then in that case, then are not expected.
No, Arcapex is for watershed level applications. But here, only if the difference is the crops across the site. You can treat them as different sub-area, not one coming after the other. In Arcapex, one sub-area is contributing to the other sub-area in terms of flow, in terms of sediment, and others. And so you have cascaded sub-areas. So if you like to treat like that, then Arcapex will be more feasible. But you have some areas, for example, one here, one over there, they are not connected each other. One is not contributing to the other. So in that case, you treat them as separate sub-areas in Winamax. Separate sub-area. Sub-area 1, sub-area 2, sub-area 3.
But for connectors, they can contribute.
If they contributed, if one contributes to the other, so you have cascaded sub-areas, then Arcapex is more feasible in that case. So because it has a routing component, so if you have a cascaded sub-areas, there will be routing of flow and routing of sediments. But for example, you have one farm here, for example, and another farm maybe at the town or urban, then you would like to grow different crops. But that farm is not contributing to this farm. So you feed them at
That
two
is
separate
Winamax.
areas. Yeah, that's what happens. Any more questions? Is that for you or for Fatih? Okay.
The irrigation water application different by this. For example, when we apply and an for full irrigation and if there is a deficit for irrigation water application here, if it's applied in experiment, the different by
Yes,
this.
yes, that is our decision. So we'll see how to do deficit irrigation or automatic irrigation without allowing any stress level for the crop, or if you like to apply manual irrigation. For example, sometimes you measure the type of the amount of irrigation and use it in the model. That will be manual irrigation because you already applied it. But if you need the model to apply with stress level or without stress level, use it. Another question?
But that irrigation, is that planning of irrigation or irrigation already applied and then you want to model
Both.
what the effect?
Both.
Both.
For example, you might do a modeling first before planting
Yes.
in order to determine the possible yield loss regarding if you apply full irrigation, if you apply 25% deficit, 50% deficit, and you evaluate the effect, and then you decide what to apply on the field. That is possible. Or if you have already applied it already, and you can also evaluate what was the effect. Okay, what was the effect of my irrigation application? What better application can I do? That one also can be evaluated.
Okay.
That is this is yours now.
No problem. We are working for a code that is another code. Now, is there any different thing for that we have to do for signal code?
Cereal crop?
I mean seasonal code.
Seasonal crop.
Yeah.
Like what?
For example, potato or
Okay. You like to ask?
Say what the question is again.
Okay. So far I've been looking for corn, and he said that's annual crop product, right? And is it possible to do it seasonal?
Yes, and that is through the schedule that we do
Yeah.
today. We will see it today.
Yes.
So you have to tell it the planting date, the harvesting date, whether to kill it. Keep this in mind if you are doing your planning and you don't kill. The model will assume that it is growing again and again and again. So if it's a seasonal crop, like you want it to grow for just 3 months, you have to indicate the date. You will see it in detail today. So you tell it planting, maybe first of all you have to clear the land, you plow, then you tell it plant in January, harvest in March or April, then kill. So once you put the kill, the model knows that it has to, like this is harvest time, so you harvest and take everything off. If it's a seasonal crop and it also can grow maybe for 3 months and then grow again for another 3 months, you will see that today.
If a corn is a seasonal crop, corn is a seasonal crop. We call it a perennial crop. Perennial crops are crops that you plant them once and they keep growing, okay, every year. So until they die, maybe for after a couple of years, right? That is the perennial crop. For seasonal crop, you have season
Coffee is like
that you like to plant and then harvest it. And there are two ways in this also. You can plant and harvest and kill it. So that we have a kill operation. For this kill operation, that means that crop will not regrow again after you harvest it. Okay? And that means you might be planting some different crops after that. But I know some of you also are working on forage. Okay, so they harvest the forage, but that the same forage regrows. So in that case, we do not use kill operation. So you just harvest it and let the forage regrow. Okay.
Kill. The meaning of kill. Kill.
Kill means so you
Eliminate.
that plant will not regrow once you harvest it. So for example, you planted corn, you harvest it and you kill it. That means that corn will not regrow. So if you are even if you are planting the same crop, you are planting it again after killing it, but the same root will not regrow.
Yes.
Yeah, that is the meaning of kill.
Yes.
But
Actually,
for if you avoid kill, this once you harvest it, the root will regrow.
yes. That's what they call ratoon. So, for example, for sugar cane,
Okay. Yeah.
2-3 times you can harvest.
Yeah.
One
And for forage also.
for it.
Yeah. So you just harvest it and the same forage will regrow. So you are not planting again about the forage. Good.
So with regard to, there is a good point that Nabiyu is asking. They are now working on potato, and then they are just mainly looking for a window of planting depth which could just provide an optimal yield. And then that's based on experiments.
Mhm.
And then they are running, a series of climate data in the future,
Okay.
climate change scenario also.
Mhm.
So in that case, could we make use of, or could they make use of this software in such a way that they can bring the climate change data of 100 years of data? It will come and then the crop will come.
Yeah.
And they are searching for a date of planting, which is very feasible in the future, and then recommend.
Yeah.
That's what they are doing.
So maybe you can provide feedback that you right. So for this case, if you are looking for a suitable planting date, then first you need to have the model calibrated for the experiment.
Yes.
So you have a measurement of specific planting date, getting harvest date, crop yield, and everything. After calibrating the model, you just vary the planting date.
Yes.
Okay, so you might have planted it in February, 1st of February. Now you can try planting it on the mid-February and see that. So you are going to do multiple runs throughout the year to find the optimal yield. So you have to just shift the planting date from February 1st to February, mid-February, and at the end of February, beginning of March. For example, if you like to see, for example, I'm moving it in 2 weeks. Okay, so and see the yield for each run. That means for each planting period, and that will give you a curve of production
Yes.
for each planting year. So, and then in that case, you may say something. Okay, this planting days are looks more appropriate, and you can also compare current time, and in the future might be shifting, might be good, but today might be different, right? You can also say that.
So we can do with this model.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
that's
for-
what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
We
for the
just
climate,
shift the planting date every time.
no,
Go on.
just wanted to add to the climate change bit. So you see, we are using data from 1980 to 2013. So if you want to see how climate will impact on it, you just introduce your 2025 to 2050 data set, which you may have gotten from different emission scenarios. Like if you want to see the RCPs up to 8.5, the highest possible, or the special report and the new ones that you have, you can just introduce that data set, because that data will now be for the future. And then you also go through the same process as Teddy mentioned. You have your curve, and then you can say, okay, when temperature is like this, when rainfall is like this is what will happen. So in that case, do we then have to add more water? Do we then have to shift the planting days and so on and so forth? So yes, you can do it.
She is climate expert, so you can you can ask her more questions if you are interested. Maybe the tea break.
Yeah, okay.
So if that is good, so until tea break, I just want to show you how you